AskReddit by Peacher Queen 45. People of Reddit, what's the most desperate thing you've ever done for money? I made $50 when I was randomly approached in a bar to be on a foot fetish site. There was no nudity or actual sexiness involved. Just a lot of pictures of women's feet on my face, chest, etc. It was way more uncomfortable than it should have been. I participated in some market research for a new beer. Sounded great at the time. I get paid to drink beer. Anyway, it was a bunch of different beers in small plastic cups, all of which started out tasting like the strainings of the devil's underpants and progressively got worse. They kept bringing more out until one guy cracked, swiped all his beers off the table and stormed out yelling, "I wouldn't even give this shit to my dog." I still don't know if it was market research or some bizarre psychological experiment. Probably a test of how shitty and cheap can we make this beer before people notice. Drive around nice apartment complexes and dig through their garbage like a raccoon for stuff I could pawn. Best find? I was poor growing up. Really poor. One time, around age 8 or 9. I collected a bunch of buttons, wherever I could find them around the house, and then hit the street, door to door, trying to sell them for $1 a piece. It took me 3 hours to make $5. I was so excited that I finally had enough money to buy a sugary cereal, Lucky Charms. I went to 7-Eleven, bought a box and got home to eat it, but we didn't have milk, so I started to cry. I ended up using water instead. It was very pitiful. Fast forward 40 years and now I can buy milk and cereal anytime I want. It's great. I never take it for granted. You know you have reached rock bottom when you start working in life insurance. On my last leg I got my insurance license and then learned the job was purely commission and you make more money if you are a manager. Only to find out that as a manager you have operational costs. So you actually end up spending more money just to get through the month. Then you find out it's a pyramid scheme. This is not an insurance company, it is a hiring company that had a revolving door that never stopped spinning. Primerica held a sign for people to see at an intersection. Normally this isn't bad. However, it is a local thing to bully those that do by throwing food items like milkshakes and slushies at them. Which is why I was hesitant to do so. That's horrible. We love our sign guys here. Sure, we don't get them often, but damn can they move. I'm honestly not sure how they can summon the motivation to look like they enjoy their jobs like that, but mad fucking respect. Participated in a sleep study where they had us wired up to electrodes to monitor our responses at periodic intervals across 3 days without sleep. It was brutal. I learned I cannot go without sleep for 2 days in a row. Holy cow. Thank you for all the likes. You got me. I'm curious. What happens after the 2-day mark? What kind of symptoms did you have? I pawned some handmade jewelry that was passed to me from someone very special. When I got paid less than 2 weeks later, my items were missing from the pawn shop. I have never gotten over that and it makes me sad I never even got to wear her jewelry to something special. I would have reported the pawn shop to their licensing agency. Wonder how many other people had their stuff mysteriously disappear. I participated in a food study where I couldn't eat for a day before. Arrived at the lab crazy early in the morning, had a tube put down my throat, and lay there for 6 hours as they pumped liquids into and out of my stomach. After the first 2 hours I begged them to at least turn on the TV, but they would only let me watch PBS so I couldn't accidentally see any commercials about food. It wasn't fun, but the pay was decent and they served me a steak dinner afterward. I sold my body to a drug study for 3 weeks in 1991. We took a dose of some antibiotic every day and had blood drawn throughout the day. Every day. Pay was $2,000, which was sweet for 1991. Being in the drug testing facility for 3 weeks was interesting. Those dumb surveys. Wasn't worth the time I wasted. Only got like $10 total before I gave up. As a kid I did that, and they paid us in these dumb token things that were worth pennies, had a couple hundred, but it wasn't worth anything. Yay, that was fucking Bitcoin. And I got rid of that computer and never found the old emails again. Would be a millionaire right now. I met a complete stranger from the internet to sell him some used underwear. If it were a send it in the mail thing, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But part of it was that he wanted me to meet him to give them to him. And then he would pay me in cash. It was a pretty good amount, so I went for it. We talked for a while beforehand and he was really nice. I didn't get the vibe that I was gonna get killed, and I needed the money. It was a quick meet in a Walmart parking lot. Nothing really bad happened. I did this back in college as well. Pleasant dude I met over Craigslist would buy used panties weekly and often give me gift cards to Victoria's Secret on top of the payment. He traveled fairly often and would also bring sweets and books from his trips for me. I honestly hope he's doing well. The money was good and he seemed like a well-meaning dude. I joined a medical study that was researching the effects of severe weight gain and weight loss on bone marrow. Involved 10 days of eating 6,000 calories a day and then 10 days of not eating anything. You had to stay in a hospital room the entire time. Every day they took a bone marrow sample, which was decidedly not fun. $7,000 at the end of the 20 days. You can get paid to do that? I've been doing it for free all these years. I scrounged every inch of my car, trunk, under carpet, pulled out seats, to find enough change not to bounce a check. I needed less than $1 and had about an hour to find the money and deposit it. The banker lady knew what was up when I made the deposit. 30 some years later and I still haven't bounced a check. We used to go couch diving as teenagers to buy cigarettes in the 90s. Usually between me and a couple of friends we'd be able to dig up enough change for a cheap pack we could split. These days I rarely even carry cash. So there's never any hidden money around the house to find. Many years ago, when I was a child and my mother and I were facing homelessness, we'd spend the nights at various places, like laundromats or hospitals. One night when we were really hungry, she had me dive into the wishing well to collect quarters to use for the vending machine. It's one of those surreal memories that stuck with me. Edit. Dang, thanks for all the kind words, everyone. I am, thankfully and fortunately, in a much better place in my life now. My mother, bless her heart, passed away a few years after the event in question. We had a complicated relationship because of how young I was, but I don't hold anything against her as an adult. Life just deals people a rough hand sometimes. I certainly don't know what I would have done better if I were in her shoes. If I tossed money in a wishing well and a starving kid fished it out, I would consider it money well spent. Do what you need to. In university, I signed up as a lab rat for various studies. One involved staying awake for 30+ hours in a room with no sunlight, communication, or anything else that might give me a sense of time. Among blood and urine tests as well as various probes and monitoring devices, it also involved keeping a thermometer in my ass the entire time. $1,400 is $1,400 though. Why is he keeping a thermometer up his ass? I don't know. But it's not affecting the study, so let them be. While I never sold blood to buy alcohol, there was a time when I donate blood every Friday night in order to require less alcohol. Edit. Several people have pointed out that the body doesn't replenish red blood cells that quickly, so it looks like there's some kind of trick of memory going on here. This was 20+ years ago, so probably I was donating plasma, and not blood, and either misremembering, or did not, at the time, know the difference. Also possible as just that something that I did a few times grew in memory to something I did weekly. Brains are weird. Bro. I slept with my 64-year-old landlady. In my defense, it was either that or sleep on the streets. Ah yes, the Olay pump and dump. I was newly broke as a joke and had a date in hours. She wanted to go to Red Lobster. I went through my car, parents' cars, sisters' cars, couches, everything looking for coins. I had a partial used gift card to somewhere as well. I took it all to the grocery store, cashed in the change, sold the gift card for practically nothing. I had just enough to cover myself. If she expected me to get the bill, I was finished. I'd have to own up to having like $31.25 to my name. Luckily, she didn't. She piped up and split the bill. So now we're married. Does your wife know about this first date money thing? Deleted. When my mom had cancer, we would sit by the phone waiting to hear when there was plasma available because she desperately needed it. She is cancer free now, but I will never forget the anxiety and waiting. Thank you for what you did. You really changed a lot of lives. Dug under a Chinese restaurant without shoring or permits to get to a clogged grease trap. Pulled and replaced hundreds of fluorescent ballasts, old school ones loaded with PCBs, without safety gear. I'm sorry, you need safety gear to remove ballasts? I've been doing this at my work, and nobody ever mentioned that. I just open the light, snip the wires, and yank the black ballast box. Lights aren't plugged in or anything. I'm not in danger, am I? A few years after high school, one of my HS crushes messaged me on Facebook. I was in between jobs and still living at home. She said she was coming back into town and wanted to hang out. I didn't have any money for a date. I took some rifles that were handed down to me by family to pawn shop to sell. They offered me a ridiculously low amount. I felt embarrassed and put on the spot. I wanted the date to happen. Sold the rifles. Next day we got to talking and she apologized and told me we would not be hanging out and that she was going on a date with one of her crushes from high school. I've never had this much second-hand embarrassment by reading someone's comment before. Selling condoms in a male restroom at a bar. Needed cash for a train ticket back home to the neighboring town. Was just standing in a corner offering rubber for some coins. Drew furry NSFW of someone's oxstick. I'm not even a furry artist. But I got $120 for drawing a blue double shark dick in one afternoon, so whatever. Could afford Christmas presents for the fam after that. I was 2 feet away from getting a payday loan before I came to my senses. So happy you were able to stop yourself. It's such a trap. I was living with 1 or 2 euros a day that month. Asked on Reddit. A generous woman gifted 40 euros to me. I offered an artwork in exchange, whenever I would have the time to make it. Sent it. She never claimed it. Her account is still active and sometimes I wonder how she's doing. I for one, am doing much better. Edit. What she requested.